Hey everyone, today I wanted to just make a short video about food allergy testing. So a lot of people know about regular allergy testing, where you get a scratch on your skin at the doctor's office and then you wait for a little while and see if a reaction happens. So you can do that for some foods for like contact allergies, but another way to do it, a much more comfortable way to do it in my opinion, is to get a blood test for an antibody response. So I have had this done. I had it done 2 years ago. As you all know, I have Crohn's disease, so it's very important for me to identify anything that might be a possible trigger. Now, the food allergy testing that I had done is done by a company called US BioTek. I'm sure this is backwards to you, but it's BioTek with a K. So what they do is they do ELISA testing, which is basically an enzyme-related antibody response to the different foods. And they do this through a blood sample. So as far as I understand, you have to have a doctor order the test. This may be different in certain areas. They may do it online now, but when I had it done, my doctor had to order it. I have a naturopathic doctor. I live in Washington State currently, and NDs are covered just like regular MDs or medical doctors. So most insurances cover it, and your naturopathic doctor can order the same blood tests as a regular doctor or an MD. So my doctor, we had a conversation about my Crohn's disease, and this was shortly after I started seeing her, so about 2.5 years ago. And we had a conversation about what might be triggering my disease, because I was in a flare state at that point. And we had talked about ways for me to try and reduce my stress, but as you all know as well, I suffer from generalized and social anxiety and depression. So we talked about reducing my stress levels, but for me at that time, it really wasn't possible. And I didn't want to start on any new meds like any kind of SSRIs or NSRIs or any of those classes of drugs. I didn't want to start another drug for fear it may interfere with my system and make things worse. So we went another route. At that same time, I was starting to get massages to try and calm myself down and try to reduce my stress levels. But we also decided to go ahead with this food allergy testing. So it was really simple. US BioTek offers many different ranges of food that you can have tested for antibody presence in your blood. We just did the standard food panel, which tests for IgG and IgE antibodies. Now, I'm not really going to go into what immunoglobulin G and immunoglobulin E are, other than to say that they are antibodies in the blood. So as you know, you take antibiotics to get rid of infection. Well, your body has natural antibiotics called antibodies, and so they are present in your blood at all times, usually in smaller levels. IgG just happens to be the most prevalent in the blood. It's always in the blood in order to combat an infection that you might come across on a regular basis. And oftentimes you would never know that you came across because these antibodies in your blood take care of it. So when your body is having a response to food through an antibody, imagine how when you get sick with an infection, your body is attacking the infection. So your body is attacking these food particles in your blood as if they were an infection. So you feel sick when you're eating something that is usually absolutely fine, right? So this is an allergy. Food allergies are different than food intolerances. Food intolerances do not hike up your levels of antibodies in your blood. Food allergies cause irritation and things like that, but they do not cause a blood-borne reaction. So, This testing I found very helpful. I actually don't have that many true food allergies. I do have a lot of food intolerances. And in order to identify food intolerances, often an elimination diet is necessary. And I can make another video on elimination diets. That is something as an RD to be, I'm going to know very, very well. So I can make that video in the future, but I've had questions and I've seen questions on forums about this food allergy testing. And I know that it can be a little bit difficult to find a doctor who is willing to work with you in order to do this testing and identify food allergies. I have no idea why. When I went to my doctor and we had this conversation and decided to go through with the testing, they told me that my insurance probably would not cover it. Now, this standard food panel IgG, IgE blood test through my doctor's office with the blood test and processing through this US BioTek company would be between $250 and $300 American out of pocket. And to me, it was worth it. I had the money at the time, and any way to identify a trigger for Crohn's, I mean, it's worth it. If you can pull it off at all, I mean, my fellow sufferers, IBD sufferers, understand. It is worth it if you can. So we decided to go ahead with it. And so I did the blood test. And just to touch on insurance once more, turns out that my insurance at the time, which was Primera, would actually cover this. So what I had to do was pay the US BioTek and my provider out of pocket, and then I petitioned, especially since I had an existing condition that dealt with food, IBD, regional enteritis, ileitis, whatever they want to call it. I just had to submit a form that my provider provided to me with my diagnosis code, regional enteritis, and my insurance company reimbursed me. So it ended up costing me, I believe, 20% of the $250 or whatever it was that I had to pay out of pocket. So that is that. If you can find a doctor who will order this for you, that is perfect. If you have naturopathic doctors in your area, they are much, much more likely to work with you through this avenue, which a lot of doctors consider an alternative therapy, which I find is absolutely ridiculous. I think if you want a food allergy panel, you should be able to get one because, let's be honest, it's a blood draw. That's it. And it just gives you information. So after you've had your blood drawn and they've processed it, I believe it takes about 2 weeks to get your information back. You get one of these. And this is your, as it says, food stats antibody assessment. So, it comes with your name on it and all that and who ordered it. And then you go to the first page and it gives you a little background information on what an IgG and IgE antibody response would mean. IgEs are definitely the more, I don't want to say severe, but severe food allergy. They are what can trigger an anaphylactic response. Not to say that if you end up with some IgE results for certain foods on here that you're going to develop an anaphylactic response. That's not how it works, okay? But they do tend to be the more irritating, shall we say, response than the IgG. As I said, IgGs are present in your blood all the time in more or in higher amounts than IgE. So if we look at mine, this is the first page of my report, and as you can see, I have the dark lines are IgE, or the more severe, and the light lines are IgG, which are just, I would say, irritating or annoying responses to food. So I have a couple of fruits, pineapple and bananas, which sucks because I love bananas. These are IgG mediated response. And then over here, we look in the dairy section. Well, would you look at that? I've got several IgG and IgE mediated allergy responses. So they go through these with dairy, meat, fowl, miscellaneous foods like chocolate, fruits, fish and shellfish, grains, legumes, nuts, and vegetables. So this is just the standard food panel, but they do do specific ones for maybe ethnic foods and things like that. And I haven't gone through any of the other ones, so I can't speak to that specifically, but they do offer that. So if you can find a doctor who will work with you and who will, let's say, allow you to have more than one panel done, that's amazing. You can have as many done as you want, really, especially if your insurance is going to cover it. Now, I don't know if insurances will cover those specific ones unless you show an IgE or IgG response to foods that would be in that kind of category. So they also give you a little report summary at the back that tells you, okay, this is what you really responded to. And they also include, I don't know if you can see that, an IgA response, which is part of the ELISA testing, which is the enzyme antibody response. And they give you that little code here to put in your wallet. This is what happened. And so you can remember and tell people that, hey, I need to avoid these certain foods. So that's kind of cool. And for $250, if you have to pay out of pocket and you can afford it, I think it's absolutely worth it. You just find a doctor who is willing to work with you on things like that. Maybe even ask your gastroenterologist. You don't just have to ask a PCP, primary care provider, or your regular doctor for these tests. You can ask any doctor that you see. And if you need to find a new one, do it, because it's more important that you're comfortable with your care than anything else. So I will speak to you all again very soon. Thank you for watching.